This is Researcher 135's Community Call, Daily Talk with host Vernadeau. Welcome to the JFK call-in show tonight. We'll be talking about the JFK.
Barbara's husband's name, David Moore. And we started talking about the JFK assassination. He happened to be there. He was 3 blocks away. He was telling me all kinds of stuff and was not be able to believe. I was listening to everything he had to say. And I said, a week later, I asked her, I said, would he be interested in meeting a friend of mine and doing an interview? And I'll even bring him to Paris. She says, yeah, I knew you'd like him. I said, yeah. Oh, he had a lot to say about the JFK. And that's one of my favorite subjects. She said, what else would you like to do? I said, well, let me get a hold of the Paris News. I don't do Clarksville. So if I could get the Paris News involved and do an interview at the store, it'll be an interesting day. So that's what I'm planning on doing.
Oh, okay.
After the holidays.
All right.
So
can you remember some of what he told you?
Well, I think I've heard this story before, but I don't believe it. Apparently a lady works at Parkland and said there was a room off from everybody else's, and that's where JFK is there. I said, what? Yes, he was such messed up. He survived, but they kept him there because they're Catholic, blah, blah, blah. I said, really? And I've not heard all of that story, but I have heard it, but I don't believe it. But he did say that shots came from more than one direction. He was listening to the stories that day, and later on, he said, yeah, Oswald was already downstairs when the first cop got off his motorcycle and got into the building. And I think he was buying a soda or a cup of coffee and didn't pay much mind to him. He went to 6 stories or 4? Yeah. And he went up that way. But he saw Oswald down at the bottom at the machine. And they don't, I don't think, he told me they didn't even do what they call that scientific thing where if you fired a gun.
Yeah.
They give it a name. I don't know. They didn't do that. And I told him,
electrolysis, electron analysis, something like that.
And I told him, I said, I don't remember even reading a dialogue of what he said when he was arrested. And we talked quite a bit about that and everything else. And he says it was just a bad day. He was 3 blocks away. He saw the motorcade. He was there on the curb. But when it happened, he was just 3 blocks away.
Yeah, if I can weigh in for a minute, I am familiar with the lunchroom incident. And the supervisor, Roy Truly, was also present. And the cop actually did stop Oswald as he was getting Dr. Pepper out of the machine and said, who are you? And Roy Truly turns and says, this man works here, at which point the cop lets Oswald go. And Oswald goes ahead and walks out the front. So that's the scene on that.
Yes.
Now, they did do some various testings, about an hour later after Tippit was shot and they apprehended Oswald over at the Texas Theater. They did do some tests that is in some of the books I've read and available online too, in terms of definitely some type of powder residue, maybe on Oswald's hands or sweater. I'll have to look into that again because this doesn't come up very much.
No, it's
an interesting point that you're bringing up. It really, really is.
He had a lot.
I do know what Oswald said during his arrest there at the theater. He said it where everybody in the theater would hear it. He said, police brutality, I am not resisting arrest. I am not resisting arrest. Mm-hmm. He said that. And then they carried him out, and a mob had formed in front of the Texas Theater wanting to basically lynch Oswald. because the word had already spread that he was in the Texas Theater and that the Dallas police were arresting him. And the police literally had to protect Oswald and get him into the squad car and down there to the station. Now, there had been a scuffle in the theater between him and an officer named McDonald, in which Oswald had tried to slug the officer, and Oswald's pistol didn't discharge because the officer's thumb got stuck between the hammer and the deal. I'm aware of that incident too. That was during the arrest, and so yeah, that's kind of what I know about some of the surrounding events to what you were talking about there. Yeah,
I had a few questions about that too. Okay, there's pictures of the hallway at the police station. They've got him arrested,
right.
He's in a room, and there's a lot of crowd of people,
Yes.
And there was Jack Ruby.
Right, Ruby showed up that night, Friday night, yeah.
And that gun was in his back pocket. You could see it in the photograph.
Interesting.
I would love to know what they asked him and approach him with that question. Says, why would you be after him that early when you're saying this and this already? I don't know what has been questioned about that.
Well, at that midnight press conference that was held the night of Oswald's arrest, which was Friday, November 22nd, the day of the assassination, whenever he was brought out before the TV cameras, Ruby was there in the audience. And at one point, during one of these televised things, somebody called it, I think it was Henry Wade that misspoke and called it something Cuba party that Oswald had started, and Jack Ruby corrected him and said fair play for Cuba. Jack Ruby already knew that either from the newspaper reports or from earlier televised stuff. But yeah, Ruby was present during a lot of stuff during that weekend. And in fact, according to Seth Cantor, who wrote a book about Jack Ruby, Seth Cantor was at that time worked for either one of the newspapers, probably Morning News or Times Herald, I don't remember which, and or was associated with one of the radio stations. But anyhow, he remembers seeing Jack Ruby at Parkland. So Ruby went over to Parkland right during that time period while JFK was there and had been shot. Well, so did a lot of mourners. And